Hey, everybody. Welcome to MAXtape Live. We're so glad you're here.
Yes, welcome.
I'm Lindsay Benedetto.
I'm Craig Rector.
Today, we had a chat with Laura Spinelli, the digital marketing manager at ShopKeeper Management. Let's talk about that chat.
Yeah, so a really exciting conversation for you, but also for me. One, they manage artists like the great Miranda Lambert.
Yes.
But also the oh-so-lovely Tennille Towns,
Tennille.
which you may not know. If you've seen our past episodes, you do. But she is my favorite use case of Set Out Live.
Yeah, Craig was major fangirling.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a masterclass in authenticity and how do you take tech and use that and integrate it into your show to not only build fan base, but also to create a moment with the fans and actually be able to drive that experience in a way that is authentic to the artist. I mean, it's just, you're going to want to hear that part of the conversation.
Yeah. We also talked about establishing your niche in building your fan base. How can an artist do that well, and what tactics should they deploy?
Yeah. And how do you manage, the difference between managing an artist like Miranda with an established brand and fan base and in history, but then also emerging artists like Tennille Towns.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to stick around for this one.
Yeah. We're super excited to chat with you today, Laura.
Yeah, excited to talk with you guys too.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So you're out of Nashville.
Mm-hmm. And Craig was just there.
I was just there. I came back yesterday. So I was there for the Nashville briefing, the 25 artists to watch showcase. That was a lot of fun. So usually when I go, it's been for music biz. And so it's always just you're in the conference and maybe at night if
there's some after parties and networking.
Yeah, but it really is. You go out and you're just kind of drinking or whatever. This was this was a show. I got to enjoy Nashville music scene. It was on the Sky Deck, which when they gave me directions to where to go and enter, there's this really tall hotel or something right there by Hattie B's or whatever right there on Broadway. And so I'm like, well, the Sky Deck's obviously way up there.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's on the third floor of the food area.
That's awesome.
So I kept getting lost because I was like, there's no way. I mean, it has to be all the way
yeah,
up
it
there.
has to be the top. Yeah. That's funny. I love it.
Yeah.
So how long have you lived in Nashville?
So I have lived here for almost 9 years, and it definitely has transformed in those 9 years from, it's still definitely a city that has small town charm. I run into the same people at Trader Joe's all the time, so it feels a little bit small town, but I feel like more and more within the past, 6 months, especially, I've had this just oh my gosh, we are a city. You drive down and you've got the cranes. And I think the transformation was that we had been in this building mode downtown where you would just look outside and it literally would just be a sea of cranes. And there's still some, but now those buildings are up. So it feels more like it has reached its transformational journey that it's been on.
Yeah.
Is most of that development corporate and living, or are they extending? Is the social scene expected to kind of extend out to where all the places they're building?
I think it's just everywhere. Everywhere is kind of being built up. Downtown, in particular, is a lot of the more commercial buildings, either high-rise apartments or office buildings, which I guess people are going back to the office still. And then that just does sort of spread out from a social perspective. So, there's more things in different areas. Oh, and the sad part is then a lot of the cool things that make the areas nice also go away as these high rises are built. Music Row is more apartments and condos than it is cute little boutique music companies.
Yeah.
So that's been obviously a downside of the change.
That is a big downside though.
Yeah.
I like to see those places that, those historic places that
give the city its charm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so you've been ShopKeeper Management now for 7 years?
Yeah, been here for a little over 7 years. So got started here pretty early on into my journey at Nashville. It's obviously been a great place to work and get to grow over the course of the past 7 years. So I do all of the digital marketing for our company. We're a small company. There's only 6 of us here. and our main two clients are Miranda Lambert and Tennille Towns. And so it's been, and then with Pislanis, Miranda's band, when they're active, we work with them too. So it's been fun to kind of work with artists on both sides of where their careers are. You know, Miranda is obviously established, been at this for 20 years, and Tennille is in the process. You know, she's got a great foundation, is in the more the process of getting started. So it's fun to have kind of both of those. It's two different sides of the brain all the time.
Yeah.
Do you have playbooks on like how you address, you know, when Miranda's releasing an album, or when, you know, you're creating content on social for her, or when you're, you know, is the focus on, you know, expanding more of the fan base, or is it, you know, let's see how we can really build out the core of Miranda's, and let's actually condense it so we can know how, you know, where the, you know, those kind of super fans are versus, you know, for Tennille, like, is there a different playbook for each, or is it just different content, you know, same strategies kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. It is a little bit of both for each, you know, for Tennille, she has a core base of fans, and we want them to grow and increase in loyalty and kind of, you know, balloon out, while still acquiring new ones. And for Miranda, obviously, she's got a strong core of fans that have been there with her since, you know, 2003 in the Nashville Star days. And so it's a balance of also keeping them happy, but still. She still wants, you know, she's like, okay, I've got 20 years under my belt. Like I've got what's happening for the 20 years ahead. So there is definitely growth in a mindset of growth and a focus on growth in both of them. It's just like the nature of how that growth takes place is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Do you use similar kind of tech and tool sets for, you know, for both either digital or, you know, like what is the, I mean, I imagine there's just more of a, when you say Miranda's coming to town, or if you're, so you can do some promotion and stuff, there's radio, I'm sure there's, I mean, there's just a bunch of different avenues. Like what are some of those things that you do for Miranda that, you know, I don't know, you I guess try to do for Tennille, but that, you know, basically, I don't know if what we're saying is that it's essentially the same strategies for both, with how you digitally and on tour, you know, promote and you know, promote them, or if, you know, you've got different tactics that are like, this is really for like kind of startup and growth, and because Miranda has a brand that, you know, I mean, it's going to be around for a long time, so it's there's a lot you can do with that.
Yeah. For sure. And she does so much more than just music. I mean, she's involved in entertainment. Doesn't she have a restaurant? Did I make this up?
She does. No, he didn't. Yeah,
Okay.
she has a bar, Casa Rosa in downtown Nashville.
Yeah.
It's like cute and pink, Tex-Mex. The food is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But
So to Craig's
really,
point, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it really is kind of, it feels truly like you use kind of two different sides of your brain. I think with both of those, as you know, with Miranda, she has all of the traditional media sources at her disposal when she goes to launch an album, a tour. Radio is there, TV is there, print media is there, and then on top of that, you have the online element of that. And for I think most artists who are developing in maybe the space Tennille's in, they have what they can do online, they have their, you know, their socials, their emails, and it, you know, just getting that sort of like collective mass attention from the more like traditional media places is just a little bit, it's just a different kind of ball game. For example, Miranda can say one thing in an interview and like everyone will pick it up. And so you get that sort of like network effect from media. And for the more Tennille space, it's if you want 5 people to cover you, you've got to do interviews with 5 people. So that part just is a bit more of a grind, I think. Versus Miranda can be kind of selective about who she talks to, and you know, and for a more developing artist, you have to do all the things. We literally say that phrase all the time. We're like, you have to do all the things. And it's true. It's like there are kind of more slices of the pie of things to do, which is awesome. You know, it's the nice part about the digital space is that you're not beholden to any of the gatekeepers, so to speak. You're not beholden to radio. You're not beholden to, like, if someone says, no, we don't want you on our TV show, you still have your own platforms. And they have the ability to reach a lot of people if you have compelling content. And so I think that's the cool part about what, you know, especially TikTok and Instagram Reels, those kind of more, those platforms that lean towards giving you this viral moment. You don't even have to have a viral moment, but kind of consistently putting out content that is in front of people. The steering wheel is, yours as the artist. So I think that's actually a really cool part of something that has changed quite a bit, even in, the 7 years that I've been here, is the ability to have any artist can reach people if they want to, if they're not waiting on anyone. And of course that was, the same with Twitter and Instagram and Facebook in the early days, but that has become an even greater asset that artists have at their disposal in the past few years with TikTok.
Mm-hmm. So if we're going through the social media door, right? We literally can't have a conversation with a marketer these days and not talk about social media because they're such powerful platforms, right? But what are some of the trends that you're seeing that musicians specifically should jump on and take advantage of? Because we've talked to so many different people in the music industry, you can't jump on every single trend, right? Not all of them are authentic to the artist. And maybe it's just like not the right time to try to do that. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing that you're like, yeah, every musician should try to jump in on this and use it, leverage it to their advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, TikTok, everyone should be on TikTok. I think if you're not, you're obviously missing out. But kind of beyond that, in a little bit more depth, I think it's just, honestly, in country music, Facebook is still big if we're like in the specific of platforms. And then I think beyond that, just talking about trends to jump on or not is really a moment of self-reflection for the artist. It's like, okay, is this authentic to me? Is me participating in whatever this thing is going to bring in fans that will like my music and will want to buy a ticket? And if the answer to one of those questions is no, then you don't do it. So it's, I think, so specific to each artist, kind of what makes sense for them, because they're, and if we're talking about like social media trends in particular, like it could be something is going viral about using a sound from the new Barbie movie, but if that's not fitting in with your brand, then you jumping in on that trend is just going to bring in fans that aren't the ones that are going to appreciate the art that you're creating. And so that's something that I think is like hard for just any artist right now on a day-to-day basis, is it's almost like they're faced with this question of like, who are you every single day as they're creating content to put out? And it's really easy to sort of slowly get off path without even realizing it as you're making these micro decisions on a daily basis. And so I think one of the hardest challenges that artists have right now is just that like self-awareness and being that, and obviously people change, people grow, and it's just making sure that you're growing in a way that feels true to you. I think we're always throwing around like the word authentic too, which um for us really does mean like, are you attracting the fans that you want to be attracting, that are going to listen to your music, that are going to be there for the next 20 years, that kind of thing. Which is a cool part about country music too, is because it grows such loyal fans. Once they are in, they are in. And I think kind of having that gear towards longevity is such an important and like unique aspect of the genre.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask. Is that unique to country music, and why is that the case? Why is it? What are you seeing in terms of why people are so loyal when they're country music fans compared to pop, R&B, any other genre?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of it kind of goes back to the roots of country music. It very much started as a genre that was, built around people, the family coming together and listening to the artist at the Opry. So it was people like literally like groups of people coming together to listen. And I think that has been a factor. And then over time, country artists have just been, I think, always a little bit more accessible. So there's an expectation of being there and being there for the fans in a way that maybe artists in other genres aren't. Which I think actually is one reason why country music has like translated quite well into this hyper digital era, because it's just one more touch point with fans to build that loyalty. And country artists were already used to being an open book with their fans in a lot of ways, and so that helped. That was just an advantage that I think country artists had kind of going into this
So
where we are with the world.
Yeah.
so with that, without getting like too deep, I mean, I think that there's also an element with probably with what country music represents and the storytelling around that, and like the types of people that it reach, and I think that there's a large portion of that audience that, I don't know, like anachronistic, like they're a little bit more like set in their ways, and so like I like what I like, and so I find this that I like, and now that
I'm all
decision's
in.
made for the rest of my
Yes,
life.
yeah.
I love this artist for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But with that, there is new generations that are also driving country music forward. How do artists like Miranda Lambert adapt to the trends that reach those audiences like TikTok versus the younger artists who, there might be a learning curve with, like, I'm not personally on TikTok, but I know, let's say technology more. And so like I'm framed better with being able to do it versus those that are addicted to TikTok like the rest of us. And so using TikTok, getting on TikTok feels, it's a natural transition to a part of their own strategy. Like, is one harder than the other? Or do you find that with Miranda Lambert that there's still going to be appeal to some younger audience, but I'm sure that the majority is, an aging audience group. And so do you find it still that you're engaging in a good way those younger audiences on platforms like TikTok, or do you really focus on like, we'll do some of that, but we really need to focus on these other places that our core audience, exists?
Yeah, it's really both. So, we have the kind of maybe older, more core audience that exists on her Facebook and certain other more traditional media, radio places. That's kind of where they have a touch point with her. But on TikTok, she is super popular with the younger demographic. She's had quite a few songs take off with random different trends, and the young people on the platform really have embraced her music. And I think, it's because she's always creating stuff that feels fresh. It doesn't feel old. It feels new and cool. And she's so cool too that people just are gravitating towards that. And then also it's the people who grew up with her, their kids. So they, like the mom will take the daughter to the concert, and that builds this new generation of loyal fans. And the daughters are on TikTok, the moms are on Facebook, and that kind of, we hit them both in both places there.
Right. They're both
And
like,
that's
hey,
kind of,
check
again,
this
like
out.
the
I'm like,
advantage of when you grow with your audience in that way, you kind of naturally have this second one coming in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I love about Miranda, though, just specifically with her music, is you can tell that there's, music that she's created, 10 years ago. Today when there's a song like, oh, that's Miranda, but there's also not an evolution of her saying, oh, there's this sound, there's this trend, there's this thing, I need to write to that. But it feels as though when she's putting stuff out, it is not to meet today's trend. It is her exploration and acceptance of where she's going on her creative journey. And so there's a timelessness to what she's creating. Whereas like there's so much music that I loved when I was younger. I'm like, you can tell that was imprinted, 30 years ago or whatever. But I think Miranda has you could listen to a song she wrote 5-10 years ago. And if you've never been exposed to Miranda, you would think like, oh, that might've been written this
recently.
year.
Yeah. And that is the advantage of like, it is music, and sonically, it is all true to her. And so I think when you're not chasing trend, I think if you chase trends in whatever aspect of your career, sonically, musically, in a social media space, if you're on the wave of the trend, then you're at the height when the trend's at the height, but when the trend goes down, then you go down with it, kind of thing. So if you're sort of slowly building in this way that's very authentic to you, then you're not kind of succumbing to the ups and the downs of a trend.
And if you're not super adaptable to catch the wave of that next trend, then it just engulfs you, and you're,
And it's generally hard to catch the wave of the next trend if you've ridden the trend of one, because then people don't think it's authentic once you're on the other one. Because they're like, oh, we just saw you do that, and you were that person. Now you're this person. I mean, like, that doesn't make sense.
It's like surfing when you are like, oh, I'm going to catch this wave. Well, like you're going to miss several sets while you're getting back out there to prepare for the next wave.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great analogy. Yeah, absolutely.
No, so you were talking earlier about being careful with hopping on trends because you might get fans that aren't really there for the long journey. They're not going to add much value beyond potentially like a social following or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me think of there is hopping onto trends that maybe help to pad your followers, but don't do much to drive things further down the funnel. But also there's a trend of like with streams and followers having fake followers. And I don't know if there's like the official term. I think I'm calling it stream or follower spoofing. So is there a value in that in your mind, even just clinically, a value in, building that follower base just for the number or just for the stream count? And does that value outweigh the potential downturn of, and what would be that potential downside of doing that?
You're talking about sort of like followers that you gain from following a trend versus like followers that are like bought from a company or something, right?
Yeah, both. Is obviously one seems to be a little bit more real than another. But in the scope of your career, an inactive follower or kind of a follower, a fan that is not really engaged at all is just a number. Might as well just be a bot. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think people maybe at one point having, saying, oh, I've got 50,000 followers instead of my actual 10 that I have might have been of value, but people are too smart. Like brands are too smart for that now. Like everyone, if they see you have 50,000 followers, but only, 5 people are regularly engaging with your posts or 100 people, I think it becomes very clear very quickly that things are real or fake. And I just think that erodes trust between anyone you might want to be working with if you're building up these people who aren't going to be there. And then it does kind of hurt you too if you build up fans because you had some viral video that blew up and it was unrelated entirely to what you want to actually be putting out, then the algorithm says like, okay, I'm going to serve your other content, your music content, to these people that came in and they're not going to engage with it. So the algorithm says, oh, people don't like this content, I'm not going to show it to anyone. So I actually think it can be a detriment to people who are having like the wrong type of followers, and because it like hurts the algorithm's view of your profile in general.
Yeah, that's another good point.
So, yeah, I'm really not for the we want real people here.
Yeah.
Well, it also seems though is that one of the big issues that we've seen more and more, especially over the last decade, is that fewer and fewer of your followers actually see organic posts that you post. So unless you actually on TikTok go to like the people I'm following and just show me their content, or specifically go to somebody that you're following to see what they've got going on, there's a smaller and smaller percentage. And so if, a majority of those are bots or not real followers, then you're increasing the chance that people who don't care about your stuff are going to see it of the small percentage that do.
Yeah.
That was
that's a great point. Yeah,
but
you're like, let me announce
we're tracking
this
with you
tour,
though.
and only people who see it don't want to go.
Yeah. Well, while we're go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. Go for it.
I mean, while we're still talking about social media trends to hop on versus not to hop on, and thinking about social tactics, you alluded to something in a brief conversation we had with you last week, that you guys have kind of explored influencer marketing as it relates to Miranda, Tina, and maybe some other artists that you guys are working with at ShopKeeper. So what are those conversations looking like, and what have those, the influencer marketing tactic on social, has that yielded any really great results for you guys? And if not, what have you learned from exploring?
Yeah, totally. We've definitely been exploring with that a lot because in a lot of ways, we're trying to think of influencers as sort of media. So like how, if you're approaching a Rolling Stone or a Billboard, you want to build a relationship with them over time and you want to tell your artist story with them over time. So one of the things we've been working on with influencers is trying to do things with them like repeatedly so that it's not just like this one-off hit that then goes away. It's, they're invested in either Miranda or Tennille or whatever. So kind of this is brand new in our exploration territory. So we haven't perfected this at all yet, but it's kind of like one of the things we've been doing is just inviting them to different events that we are holding, and kind of doing that multiple times. So we have this one group we invited to Miranda Lamberts residency last December, and then come CMA Fest. We got a few of them back, and if they were in Nashville, to come hang out at Casa Rosa, her bar as well. So it's sort of like, we know these people, we know that their audience likes Miranda, we know that they like Miranda, and if we can kind of engage with them over time, then that helps everyone. And again, it kind of goes back to that authenticity thing. It's more authentic. And it's sort of less, I think everything is so loud. There's so much noise. If you can continually kind of pop up into people's bubbles, then you're more likely for somebody to like register, oh, Miranda has a new song out, or a Las Vegas residency, than if they're just seeing it once and then it disappears and they never see it again in their little bubble. So it's kind of like bubble infiltration, or like niche marketing really is probably the sophisticated term for that. But so much of it is like, in TikTok, you get down these rabbit holes. And if you're in the rabbit hole, it feels like the biggest thing in the world. And it could be a small rabbit hole that only 20 other people are talking about, but it feels like it is the world. So it's almost like trying to figure out ways to create that echo chamber for fans and finding influencers that hit those same people over and over again, which is definitely, again, sounds great in theory. It's really hard to do in practice. But we're just trying to experiment with that more and see what happens. And so far it has worked, I think, and it's work is such a it's an arbitrary number sometimes, and you can't necessarily tell, like, does this post lead to ticket sales or those things. But what we're looking at there is engagement, and
Right.
the stuff that we've been doing with influencers has been engaging really well. So that means people are seeing it. So
Yeah.
that helps, and that's kind of our metric for success of that at the moment.
Yeah.
So you're talking about kind of attribution to kind of lower funnel activity like ticket sales and whatnot. And so it made me think, so Miranda and Tennille both use Set.live at their shows to collect fan information. Now,
but seriously though, they do.
Sorry, I just broke the fourth
They
wall.
do, and we love it.
Yeah. So how do you all use that information that you're capturing at the live shows, either directly after or in nurturing, and how do those how does that fan contact information and those fans engage differently than other things that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the great parts of using Set.live is just knowing what shows fans attended. Because otherwise that's information that only Live Nation and Ticketmaster have. They know that you showed up to a Miranda Lambert show 3 times, but like we don't know that. Then, without the help of Set.live. So if you're going to a Miranda show and you enter to win something via Set.live, or we connect with you, we know you've been to see Miranda in Dallas. Or Tennille in Dallas or wherever, and then we can message you. And we've done a lot of that kind of with Tennille and her fans. So for example, she's in the UK again right now, and she has used Set.live in the UK in the past. So as we were preparing for this tour, one of the things we did was just send an email out to those people who attended the shows last and made it very personal and said, like, hey, you were at this show in London last time. You guys sold out the show. It was amazing. Like, she kind of mentioned some specific things that she remembered from the show that night. Like, I'm going to be back, go get tickets. And we've seen that the open rates on those have been so high. So that has been, just kind of like, encouragement for us to keep doing that. And we also kind of after the show, I read some study at one point a long time ago that said like the 24 hours after a show, you're still in this like state of euphoria.
Yes.
And so that is when like you really want to hit fans with something, right? Like
Yes.
if you've seen anything, you're like, oh my gosh, post-concert depression is setting in. I just want to be back at the show.
Well, I was just
that's like a great time to hit up fans. And so this was actually something that came from her and her manager that we talked about, like, oh, should we, after we, if she plays a show in London the next day, what should we ask them to do? Should we ask them to buy more merch or another ticket? And both Tennille and her manager were like, no, like they just spent all this money on coming to the show and traveling there. Like, let's just thank them for coming and build like loyalty in a relationship that way. So one of the things that we've been doing with Tennille in those shows is sending fans an email after the show that has a photo from the show or a photo that she's taken that kind of has like the city name written on it, just thanking them for being there. And again, I think that goes into the long-term, like, invest and build loyalty. Like, how cool would it be if you went to a show and someone was like, thanks for being there? Like, you feel kind of seen in that. And I think at the end of the day, everyone just wants to feel acknowledged. And even it goes back to like the old days of the like classic artist shows up in Dallas and is like, hey, Dallas, how are you doing? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, I live in Dallas. They
Yeah.
said Dallas.
Right.
This is so exciting.
Yeah. There's a
Right.
So
reason
just kind of
why
acknowledging
artists
those people
say
in
so
that
good to
light
be
is
in
really cool.
city.
Yeah,
'Cause
truly.
it pumps us up.
Yeah. And thinking about the
Yeah.
fan experience too, like if you get that email, I was just at the Jonas Brothers last night. They were at Globe Live. So when you're talking about this like state of euphoria and we have post-concert depression, I'm definitely feeling that. Not necessarily like a diehard Joe Bro fan, but anyway, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, if I would have gotten an email from them today that was personal
It
or
said,
like
I'm a sucker for you.
this is a trigger for
Craig got
Craig.
it.
Laura, listen, that there is a story behind what Craig just said. It's a whole thing. I don't know if we get into it here on
Probably
this
not here.
episode, but
Probably
you know,
not
we'll
here.
we'll
hear
tell you
after
another
the
time.
podcast.
Yeah. I'll fill you.
For sure. But no, just thinking about the personal touch that Tennille is giving to her fans and really, like you said, making them feel seen. And then just thinking about the individuals who attended a show a year ago, she's coming back through their area. Like, oh, I mean, wow, I would feel just so like, well, this is incredible. Now I feel like I have a personal relationship with Tennille. And really that's what we're about here. We're helping artists like cultivate that level of a relationship with their fans.
Well, in Tennille specifically, we use Tennille as, I know I personally use Tennille as an example.
Yeah.
So many times with
He
how
uses Tennille every time.
every
Laura,
time.
every time.
Like when we're at Music Beer, wherever we're at, and people like, I'm explaining, Set.Live and you're talking about what it does. Tennille is probably an example I give every time. Not necessarily because like, oh, it was just this ground shattering thing, but because it was, from a marketer standpoint, it was, one of the biggest things with artists that prevents them from using something like Set.Live, because when you look at, when we're being real, capturing fan info is crucial on, it's not like an argued thing. That information is so valuable.
Not a nice to have, it's a need to have. Yeah, yeah.
Set.Live is free. Set.Live is an incredible way to engage fans. Like it's a no-brainer, but artists are often like, well, we don't know what to do. Like we don't have prizes or like our merch, giving away our merch, what's the draw or what's authentic or whatever. So what is so amazing about Tennille is that it's so personal to her. It was such it's a simple idea, but so powerful.
And she was already doing it.
Yeah. So just having that moment to say, I want to remember this, come in for this photo.
Yeah.
And then saying, now, if you all want to remember this with me, then, scan the QR code, go to Set.Live.
Check in. Yeah.
Check in and, you're going to get this. And that is, to me, so simple. It is free, but it's also creating a moment in the show with Tennille and with her fans that it's not disruptive. It's not taking out of the experience. It actually is a part of the experience. And so to me, again, it is so simple, but it is so simply profound with how she does that. I love it so much as a marketer.
Yeah.
And I think that's another piece of it too, is we get stuck in like marketing world and talking about people as numbers or data, and where she comes from, an artist like her, she wants to build a genuine relationship with fans. And so for her, it's less a marketing tool and more a way to be able to scale this relationship. Like she meets as many people as possible. And this is just kind of like, she would do that in real life. If she met you guys today, she would send you a thank you note. And that's a way to do that with fans. So really for her, it's just like, she wants to develop that genuine relationship. Like where are there tools that allow, her to do that? So I think that's like another part that makes her and her use case of this unique too, is that it's not like marketing, like transaction exchange. It's like getting to know people and making them feel included and seen and accepted and belonging and all that.
It's not what are we going to do today to get the highest, return on our investment for this show,
Right. Yeah. It's that relationship.
I sometimes think about it that way.
Yes, well, of course,
I have to remind myself that we're humans and we're not marketers.
But that's your role.
You get paid to do that, Laura, for sure. I mean, that's your job. Okay, so when we're talking about collecting this information, right, it's relationship first, right? Building that authentic relationship. But then, of course, you're given all this incredible data that you can take and remarket. So in your opinion, your professional opinion, what are your top 3 absolute must-dos with that fan contact information or data that you've collected from one of Tennille or Miranda's shows? Like, what would you say that every label or artist manager or marketer should be doing with that information once they have it?
Yeah, that is a great question, and definitely depends on kind of who owns the email list. But since labels do own a lot of them, I think kind of like step one of what should people do with emails is start collecting more rich information. 7 years ago, it was like every email must have a zip code. If it doesn't have a zip code, it's useless because we can't market to them via the tour. And now I think just having a zip code and knowing where they live is not nearly enough. Set.live allows you to know what show they attended, how many times they've attended a show. That is like so much richer data. So collectively being better about making sure that it's not just an email and a zip code, it's an email, a zip code, and whatever other information.
And a phone
And there's other
number,
tools too
yeah.
that let people know like how many times a fan has streamed a certain song. If like every time a fan, or you connect via a pre-save campaign from a label, they get access to your Spotify or Apple Music library. Like they know how much you listen. And that is hugely important data. And I think a lot of other industries and in music, Ticketmaster does that really well. Ticketmaster knows you went to the Jonas Brothers concert last night.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to send you other shows like the Jonas Brothers
Yes.
concert.
Yeah.
But like on the artist side and on the label side, we're not taking advantage of those tools as much, which I think is important, from an artist discovery perspective. So like if a label is sitting on all of this information that, they know you listen to the Jonas Brothers 50 times because you pre-saved their song and then they're watching your listening history. And then they know that you also listen to Haim the Band or something, or Taylor Swift or, Adele, whatever. And they say like, oh, okay, here's his profile. We think Lindsay kind of like likes the Jonas Brothers. She might like this other band that we have. Like, let's introduce their music to her. So just being more targeted, personalized, and specific about email campaigns is something that I really think is an opportunity for anyone in music that owns the artist email data, again, which in a lot of cases is labels. And then on the artist side, really taking care of your fans in that way. So like I said, even I think one of the other things we did with Tennille was like a year out from one of the shows that that we got some Set.live information for. It was like a year ago, you guys were, with me in London.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Here's
I
that,
love
like
that.
great memories,
Yeah.
So you're again like building that loyalty and just more personalized emails, not just like, here's my tour, here's my song. It's hard to do and it's time consuming, and we have not perfected it by any means, but these are at least like the directions that we're trying to take it in to be a little bit better than we can be. So yeah, those are kind of our three things: collect in good data, use it for artist discovery, and then use it to increase loyalty of your own fans.
Yeah, I love it. So I mean, conversely, we have to ask the opposite. Like, what are the absolute don't do's with that information? Once you've gotten it, I don't know, like what's one thing or a couple things that you're like, yeah, definitely make sure you avoid this?
Yeah. And, I think not being salesy all the time. Like sometimes if you've got like this list of people, send them fun things that are just, hey, here's something cool. I'm not asking you to buy anything. I think that's probably one of the most important pieces, which again, hard to do because when you're off cycle or in the middle of a project, you're not thinking about the email list in that way, so you're not thinking, oh, I should just send them something for the fun of it. But it's kind of like texting someone. Like if you're only like, hi, I'm going to text you just because I want my concert tickets, or like I want to be on the list for this show. It's not, you gotta like build that relationship, have coffees, have lunches, do the stuff in between so that when you want to actually ask someone for something, that has been built up. So I think that's probably the one thing not to do. And I think we all fall victim to it a lot. We are very much guilty of that sometimes, but if we can, again, be aiming towards building a relationship, then that is going to help everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's an internal conversation we have a lot just on the brand side of our business when we're doing outreaches. It's really easy to be like, oh, we have a campaign, who are we going to email to? And like, or who are we going to reach out to? Who are we going to target? And
what's
then
the
like,
ask?
What's the ask? Yeah. And so it's really hard to sit back and say, I'm putting forth this effort and I'm, going to use my time and resources to just reach out and, and hope that it builds relationship and, like you said, that repetition so that, in a saturated world with so much noise, which, by the way, for our Music Audience Exchange, so the parent company, that's our
tagline.
Motto.
Yeah, our motto.
More music, less noise. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. We had a conversation with Sloan Friedman, who does marketing over at CrowdSurf. We chatted with her last week, and she said something so similar to what you're saying too, where we asked her, how do you toe the line between promotional content for your artists versus personal content that actually resonates and helps connect with fans? And she was like, yeah, every time I post something that's salesy, like buy my ticket, stream my music, it's a post, do this for me, and then the very next post is a give. It's sort of that give and get approach where you alternate like the content that you're putting in front of the people to kind of help nurture that relationship, but then also, reach those goals. So
I feel like some would say, ask and then give, give, and then ask.
And then ask again, yeah. Depending on the size of the ask, right?
Yeah, that is true.
Or in this world too, we're especially with like content wise, we're like, how can we do both at the same time? Miranda released a cookbook earlier this year, and with Talk Shop Live put together this really cool piece, kind of sharing the stories behind the cookbook and showing her mom and their friends that were featured in the cookbook cooking. And so obviously Talk Shop Live is by nature promotional, but at the same time, it's this piece of content that's a really deep look into kind of who she was and the story behind the book. And so I think part of that too maybe is starting to try to not think about it in two separate ways, trying to think like, how can we give while promoting?
I love that too.
Which again, very hard to do, hard line to toe. And I think the ones who are the best at it are a lot of these younger artists coming up who have like grown up with social media and are really good at incorporating an ask, but making it feel like it's not an ask, it's like bringing people along. And it's a really hard fine line to toe.
Well, I also feel like TikTok is more and more being suited for that, because there's this, one guy who he collects like antique books, and his storytelling was first like about his shop and about what he does and come by and this and that and whatever, and then I saw the guy who actually helped him, and it then just turned into people are the people who are interested in the stories behind this 500-year mini Bible type thing, or this whatever other antique book. Like, those are the people that are going to go and find out who you are, find out your shop, and like his business increased, not because he was like, come buy my stuff or look at my business. It was just telling these incredible stories about these really fascinating, antique and historic books that he's collected over the years that is now driving his book business. So, but it's like, that's hard to do on platforms in the past. TikTok really is, we're going to put you on Book Talk, and so it knows how to find, topics and then feed it, new content and new creators, in that theme.
Yeah.
It's hard with just the volume too. It used to be like an artist goes on radio tour or does their little press circuit or something. And that was like a week of promo or a couple weeks of promo, and, TikTok, Instagram, socials, it's every day. So it's just like consistently being that creative and that, figuring out the balance between creativity and promotional, or figuring out how to combine those two on a daily basis. It's like exercise. It's hard to exercise every day. It's much easier to exercise once a month, but but you don't get the results doing that. So
right.
Well, so Jeff Rosenfeld, which who is the developer, the head of our development team, so he's the mastermind behind Set. We talked with him on one of our first episodes, and he made this very interesting, and I thought it was very, it was a very interesting comment where he talked about how it used to be that music was the product, because music, you would buy it. And so when you release a song, you would, when you would want it, it would cost you to buy a CD, to buy the song digitally or whatever. And so now it's more music is the marketing vehicle, and social, like all these are the marketing vehicles that you spend all this time to create, which is driving the product, which is merch, which is tour sales, which is, the things that, people are spending money on. And so it's very difficult to have to maintain when you're creating all this music. And even if you're getting a lot of streams, that you still have to do the effort of, all of that not being the end goal, but the end goal is now how can we convert all of that attention and traffic and time that we're spending and all these different spaces to now get them to buy tickets, to buy merch, to subscribe, to, and to actually drive the revenue of side of the business, which is, I hope at some point there's a way for the artists to get back to, I create good music and people consume it, and then there's my living. But until then, artists and their teams have to wear just a million different hats.
That's a tall order, for sure.
It is. It's asking a lot of somebody to be a great songwriter and be great at recording and be really amazing live and also be great at social content and be great at interviewing and be, all of this all the time. Be great at photo shoots and video shoots. It's amazing anyone can make it. It's a lot of skills that have to be wrapped up in one person.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder all the great talent throughout history. We could name out a bunch, but how would they have thrived? Would they have, starting out in this
cultural
in this
moment.
age, in this cultural moment, I look at music, I'm like, oh no, that song was just amazing. Like, of course it would have stood out, but I'm like, but there's a lot of amazing music out there that doesn't. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting time.
Yeah. In some ways we get to see that with like the Dolly Partons of the world. Dolly is huge on TikTok and she also grew up before all of that happened. And it's, I guess, just kind of a matter of, can you evolve? And in the time, could they have evolved and adapted? And either yes or no. But I don't know. Part of me, like the creative side of me, like wants to believe that good art always will surface no matter what and when. So I don't know if that's true or idealistic or not, but it's a nice thought, at least.
I mean, I think good art surfaces, but I do think that it is good marketing. And that you do that is what is going to make it stand apart.
Yeah.
But you were talking about Dolly Parton and how she's big on TikTok, and it made me. So I'm a big gamer, and we all know the song Africa, right?
Yeah.
Of course we do.
Of course.
So it was a part of some music pack. And this was, middle of the pandemic, and it was part of some music pack that you could play, like when you get into a vehicle in game. And I remember we were playing open play, and so we had some like younger kids in the group that we were playing with, and we get in my vehicle, and we go, and all of a sudden Africa comes on, and this little kid's like, "Oh, I love this new song." I'm like, he's like. He's like, this song, whatever the language.
Let me burst your bubble.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like this kid doesn't know that this song existed forever ago.
That's painful, but also great. Like, it's great that he gets to discover a great song now.
But you said like, great art surfaces. It's like, you have this song that, was huge and influential, and then it comes back around, and then just some random, kid is like,
yeah. Well, and on the flip side, there is music and our artists that were like, oh, everybody knows who these are, like Hanson, for example. There's a team member who's on the set team who is the youngest member of our team, and she didn't know who Hanson was. I mean, we had to Google them, which, I mean, they are the OG boy band. Like, they are the reason that we have boy bands, right? But it was this whole moment where you're like, how do you work in the music industry and you don't know who Hanson is? And so it's like the flip side, the underbelly of that too. But
also, it's like, how old am I?
We're getting old.
We're old.
Getting old. All becoming our parents.
There was also one thing that you had mentioned. I know that you two were speaking specifically. I came on the tail end, but how do you help artists develop their niche? As opposed to just going like whoever's going to listen. Like, how do you help them?
At the wall.
Yeah. How do you help them to develop, that niche audience to really target and focus on?
Yeah, it's hard. I honestly really think it starts with a self-reflection journey of the artist. It has to start with them. It's like, okay, what are your interests? Where are there people out there on the internet that have those same interests too? You mentioned book talk a little bit. Like, are you a reader? Are there books that you've been reading that you can tie songs into that we can kind of like enter in? And is that authentic for you to do? So it's a lot of those questions to kind of kick off things, and then just kind of looking around all the time at everything. And, I've been like, especially recently, fascinated by like with the World Cup women's sports, and just seeing that they in so many ways are fighting the same fights in terms of attention and just the negativity that they face and all of that. And it's like, okay, well, if they're having some of the same struggles we are, like, where can these things intersect a little bit more? Music and the music that we're putting out, and women's sports. So part of it is just having kind of like a pulse on the ground of where your interests or your audience and all that might fit, and then experimenting too. If you could, if we're on the book talk example still, if you love books and you're reading and you put up some content and it works, like, cool. As long as that feels authentic to you. But it's not simple. I would say it's not like something that just happens overnight. It's kind of a process over time. And again, kind of like we mentioned earlier, that like constant checking in with yourself as the manager or the marketer, and then with the artist too, being like, is this stuff that I'm sharing and putting out into the world, does that mesh with who I am, or have we strayed the wrong direction?
Yeah.
We've asked similar questions, in the past, and it really does seem as though, in varying ways, it seems as though authenticity is probably number one on the list, that staying true to like who you are and starting with who you are, and what feels natural to which is very different from where music used to be. It used to be you're going to be who the biggest audience is,
right.
and that's who you are.
It's projection, as opposed to being authentic, being who you are. Yeah. I mean, developing brand personas, which is, really what we're talking about, but like the artist doing that right, it's like such unsexy work, because like you said, you have to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and you have to just like really get specific and down to the nitty-gritty, so that then it's that slow work up front, so you can go fast, slow down to go fast, So, but it's hard to do that when there's so many different trends and loud voices, so much noise, as we've been talking about this entire episode, out there on social platforms and online in general, kind of like screaming for your attention to do this thing, follow this path, ride this wave. So
and it's like loud voices on the internet, and just sort of, I think, in terms of who artists can be surrounded by, it's like everyone has an opinion on everything, and I think that could be so easy to get lost in. I would get lost in that, I think, if I were an artist. So we talk about a lot, like Brene Brown and the man in the arena, and the people in the cheap seats can be yelling stuff, but like what really matters is the people who are with you in the arena, like their opinions there, all of that. And I think in a lot of ways you can parallel the cheap seats to sort of this, like the trends happening, or what other people are doing, and it can be appealing to like try to like succumb to that. But if you're not focused on okay, what is in my own arena, then you get a little lost.
So do you think it is helpful or hurtful for artists to read the comments on their social posts?
It might depend on the day. But I mean, I think it's good to interact with fans, and I guess maybe it's less, is it good or bad to read, but it's sort of just like, what like personal protection do you have in place in order to be able to take that in, because it can be bad to take in too much good stuff too. I think you can get too far down a line of only seeking out the good things, and then only doing the things that are going to elicit positive comments. So I think if you can, for the people who can just sort of take that in as just data, but then separate themselves from it, that's probably a good thing. But I do think overall, like, engaging with people is extremely important. So it's important to read them, but maybe whatever your mental health protection plan is that you need to put in place to do that, then they should have that in place.
One of my favorite mentors always says that feedback is neutral. It's not good or bad. It just is. And that's really the filter and the lens in which we should engage with any type of feedback, whether it's, comments on social posts, or you've got, someone telling you should do this thing, or giving you feedback at work on how your performance was or whatever. It's just neutral. And I love that, because I feel like it frees the person, and in this conversation, the artist, from taking on personally things that are really just meant to be data. Like, this is just information that you get to decide what you want to do with. And sometimes you do nothing with it. You just like, you toss it out because that's not the thing that, sticks. It's not the thing you want to
that's
take into
a really hard thing to do, though.
I know.
I could know that here.
Yes.
And then just
the journey from the head to the heart, though.
Yeah.
It's a long journey.
Yeah.
It's a long
But
journey.
I like the thought of aspiring to reach that point. That does seem like a healthy, important place, especially because like you can search after all these things and you just get lost. You get like analysis paralysis, like, oh well, this one thing did well, or this one thing made people think this way, and then next thing you know, you can't. I mean, I succumb to this a lot too. Like you can't move forward because you're just trying to take in all this information and like make sense of it, and it doesn't make sense because there's too much. So if you are more neutral about it, then that is sort of like this block from like having to sort of take it all on.
So do you want to know something interesting?
We just
the board just started working with Zoom.
It just kicked in,
way.
so we were getting like double voice for a second.
Oh wow!
I am loving how much we have overcome tech challenges.
Yeah.
In this episode alone,
just this episode,
we are so goddamn resilient.
It's very metaphorical for marketing and music. There's lots of challenges, you overcome them, and you are right.
That's right. You are right.
So one question that we ask all attendees, because what we're hoping to do with, let me just ask the question first. What is your most memorable concert?
Ooh.
Doesn't have to be for one of your artists. It can just be.
But I will. So I had the absolute privilege of seeing Adele in Las Vegas last year, and that probably was one of the best concerts of my life.
Did you cry?
I think my jaw was on the floor the whole time. It was incredible.
Yeah, I think I would have cried.
She's so fun and funny.
Yeah,
I couldn't even cry. It was just so overwhelming.
Yeah, you're just trying to take it in, right? Like commit to memory, bottle up the feeling, the experience in your body. Oh.
Yes, I was like, I'm not going to film anything. I'll film one thing so I can be present. And then I got home and I was like, well, now I want to watch all the videos so I can relive it, and I don't have any. But luckily, TikTok, Instagram Reels. I was my Explore page on Instagram for the week after the show was just different Adele videos. But yeah, that was quite remarkable. I mean, also my first concert was NSYNC, and Pink opened. And so just having that as a first concert, I feel really set me up for success in terms of setting a high bar.
Yeah.
So that was really cool too.
Nice. NSYNC and Adele. Yeah. We want to create a playlist. Spotify playlist of all of the most memorable concerts of all the guests on the show. And then maybe at the end of the year, do a fun gift to all of our guests. With
Don't spoil it, Craig. Don't.
Okay.
With Adele tickets?
It's going to be one big concert of everyone's most memorable.
Well, this is going to be anticlimactic now because Laura thinks there's going to be concert tickets. I mean, listen.
I drive a hard bargain.
That would be awesome,
though. We're going to have to get NSYNC back together just so we can get tickets.
Can you imagine a showcase, though, of all of our guests' favorite concert moments, artists, just one big showcase, get everybody together.
Oh, man, that'd be incredible.
Using Set.Live as the activation.
Yeah.
Hot damn.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a $1 million idea.
Well, so I should have asked this earlier on because I like to give probably more for a social clip here, but so you've been with ShopKeeper for 7 years, but how long have you been in the music marketing and artist management side of the business? Has this been something you've always aspired to, or was it something that opportunity presented and that's where you've been?
Yeah, no, I didn't really. I had always been interested in music and followed it in various ways, from being, playing the clarinet in the band to being sort of the ultimate fangirl at different points in my life throughout, middle school and high school. And then when I graduated from college, I was just I don't really know what I want to do. It felt like this black hole. And I'd always loved Nashville and I always loved country music. So I was you know what, I'm just going to move there, see if I can make this far off thing work, maybe stay there for 3 years, and then I'll go get a job that my other friends have gotten. And the real world or whatever. But luckily I figured out that you can do that. You can have a real real world job and still be in music. So it's been great. But yeah, I could not have envisioned this for myself at all. I mean, I was talking to someone about that the other day. Like, they start asking you that when you're in like third grade. What do you want to do? When I was in third grade, there wasn't even MySpace, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't TikTok. Like, I could literally have not envisioned my job. There wasn't even a Spotify or an Apple Music, so I couldn't have envisioned that in middle school. And I think that's cool, because then it's like, what else is coming for us in the future that isn't here now, that we don't even know to look forward to.
Right. I mean, we had LimeWire, when we were growing up.
Fair, yes. With lots of computer viruses.
You just gotta love it. Oh God, takes me back.
The number of computers that had to be wiped.
It's so true.
So then, kind of, what's one piece of advice? So we have, experienced Laura talking to younger Laura and all the younger Lauras of the world.
Yeah.
What's probably the one biggest piece of advice, something that you had to learn the long way and hard way, that you would save them, that learning, and tell them to do this up front?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Ooh. I feel like one of the things I've been really trying hard to work on lately is just having fun, throughout all of this, and sort of letting go of the pressure of need to do this or need to do that or need to be this or need to be that, and just enjoy the process and then enjoy like the present kind of thing, and find the fun moments in the midst of all of that, which is also much easier said than done. But I think that just kind of letting go a little bit, I guess, would be a piece of advice for the young ones out there.
I mean, I love it. We talk all the time about like what we do here is not heart surgery. We don't need to be so serious about everything that we're doing. Like, we have a kick-ass technology and we get to support artists, and a lot of our staff are actually current or former musicians themselves. Craig over here.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So, it's just like, I love that. I love that piece of advice, to just take a deep breath. Like, let's have some fun. We have this one life to live.
Well, it's when I came back from Colorado.
Yes. Yeah. Craig had this entire like existential.
I had this whole,
crisis.
You're just out. So we went overlanding, and so we're in the middle of nowhere and no cell service. And I got multiple times just overwhelmed by just the scope of the world and nature, and the simplistic way of where my mind was is, look, in the scope of everything that I am looking at right now, nothing matters. I don't matter.
We are like so small in comparison,
Yeah.
So insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Like, this tree I'm sitting next to has had more impact and will have more relevance before and after I'm gone than I will ever have.
Yeah.
And that most humans will ever have.
Yeah. And
unless they chop it down.
The beauty of that is it highlights our insignificance, and at the same time understanding that that is a part of our significance as well. Like, it's both and.
That's really beautiful. It is both and. That's so beautiful. That's such a great realization from the woods.
I think, you know what? I am loving this conversation with you, Laura, because I feel like we're getting deep into our feels. But like, we're also talking like marketing and tactics and social media and doing all the things, but also like, man, just some good heartfelt stuff today.
Deep in the feels while I'm deep in the tones.
I think on that note too, just like in the note of being out in nature and looking around, is like having curiosity for things outside of the thing you're working on is so important. Like, you can learn a lot about music from being in the trees, and or whatever other interests you might have. And I think we also get so stuck in our bubble of like music or tech. It's like, what else can you learn from that is in other places that don't seem related to music at all, because that does like that. What a beautiful and profound insight that is about like life from being with the tree, so you can find that from other things.
I love that. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Well, Laura, is there anything else that you want to, anything that you think that people...
Words of wisdom.
What do the people need to know?
What do they need to know? Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I guess keep going, keep doing it. You do the things that are hard and the things that feel like they don't matter, because I think they do. If you look over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years, they do add up and they do matter. Just those like moments in between that feel maybe sometimes harder, or like it's never going to happen, whatever it is, which I feel like I'm telling this to myself, really.
Well, I told
Yeah.
that to, I literally told a version of that to my son this morning. He asked me a weird question today, this morning. He said, Dad, do I stress you out?
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, I
bless
know.
his heart.
that's so
Yeah, I know.
sweet.
And it's one of those questions where I'm like,
That's
there's
heartbreaking.
nothing that would make you think he'd ask that. But like, one, it's like, what am I giving off that,
Yes.
you know?
What am I
But
doing?
my
that
answer to him
kids?
was, you know what? Yes. And then I walked away. No.
I didn't think that's where you were going, Craig, but
Mic drop.
I said, but that's where growth happens, is in discomfort, isn't in stress. And I said, I'm no way a perfect father, Damon. I said, I'm always like, you're my only son. And so every day with you is a new day, new day as a father. And I'm going to get it right sometimes and get it wrong sometimes. But that stress that I feel, that discomfort sometimes, is what helps me to grow and be better.
Yeah.
And so I said, so yes, you do, but I want that stress, and I love that stress, and I love you.
Oh,
So it was
Craig is such a great dad. This is totally unrelated to the podcast at all, but
let's
You
frame
can
it
tell.
properly.
That's so sweet. And he's clearly such a like great and empathetic and observant
I
son
know.
to ask a question
yes.
like that.
Yes,
I mean, I love it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
he is pretty, like, and it's surprising. Like the moments where you're like, I didn't know that you were like, that's the level of thinking, that you're at, and
Yeah.
it helps to understand him more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, so many good moments with my kids
Anyways,
too.
yeah.
Anyway,
So face the discomfort, face the
Yes.
uncomfortable, because that is where growth and
Yeah.
as a person, as a career, and every aspect of our life.
and
That's
keep going.
where it happens.
Yeah. Keep going. Don't give up. I love it.
That's right. That's how everyone's gotten where they are.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Laura, this has been a delightful conversation.
Yes.
So
So
thank
fun. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Of
What a fun way to
course.
spend an afternoon.
Yes.
You gave us your whole afternoon pretty much. So sorry, not sorry. Well, Laura,
Awesome.
we're
Well,
going to let
thank
you
you
go,
guys.
but thank you so much. Appreciate your time and expertise. And can't wait for the people to hear it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you all tuning in. I hope now you know why I'm so obsessed with Danielle Towns and her use of Set.Live.
I really just appreciated that Laura wasn't afraid to kind of go there. We got in our feels in that
she
episode.
took that journey.
She was
into
not
the
afraid
fields
to
with
go
us.
there. I loved the advice that she gave to marketers, musicians, artist managers, and the like about just like, keep going. Don't take yourself too seriously. Get out into the world, put yourself in nature, and cultivate other hobbies that, might influence the job that you do on a day-to-day basis. There was so much just rich conversation beyond like best marketing practices and how do you cultivate your niche and build your fan. All those things are super important. But I really loved.
You work in the music industry.
Yeah.
And not only is it something where you're a part of the trends, you're a part of influencing culture, but you're a part of something that on so many levels of a person's life and of a fan's life. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
So just enjoy it.
Yeah. So we're really glad you tuned in with us today. If you do nothing else, you know the drill.
Oh yeah.
Please like, share, subscribe,
Do we say follow?
follow.
Yeah. That was very important.
Please do all of those things, and we'll see you back here next time.